And welcome to the Interim Joint Committee on Tourism, Small Business, and Information Technology. This is our second meeting of the interim. I want to thank everybody, first meeting for the interim. I want to thank everybody for being present today. If you do have a cell phone, if you would just please turn that to silence or vibrate as we begin our meeting and our agenda today. Before we get started, I do want to announce we have two new analysts that are assigned to this committee, both grad fellows working for LRC. That's Helen MacArthur and Eric Rodenberg that are sitting to my left in the front. And so welcome them for their service they'll be providing to the committee. And Sasha, if you would, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell, Senator Funke Frohmeyer,
Present.
Senator Gardler, Senator Harper Angel, Senator Howell, Senator Mills, Senator Storm, Senator Thomas, Senator Wheeler, Senator Wilson,
Here.
Representative All,
Here.
Representative Baker,
Here.
Representative Dotson, Representative Pfister,
Here.
Representative Frazier Gordon, Representative Freeland,
Here.
Representative Fugit,
Here.
Representative Grossberg, Representative Heath, Representative Kulkarni,
Present.
Representative Lawrence, Representative Maddox,
Here.
Representative Massaroni,
Here.
Representative McPherson,
Here.
Representative Pollock,
Here.
Representative Reed,
Here.
Representative Roberts, Representative Stalker,
Present.
Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Here.
Representative Tate, Representative Timoney, Representative Truitt,
Here.
Representative Wesley, Representative White,
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Hicks, Secretary of the Governor's Cabinet. And so, a bit of back and forth, and I want to give you a little bit of recent background. You all appropriated $300 million roughly from the American Rescue Plan Act toward expanding broadband across Kentucky to unserved and underserved areas of Kentucky. So last summer we
slowed down 18 to 24 months in construction just for environmental review processes. And I'm not saying that those aren't important, but there should be ways that we can streamline some of those processes at the federal level. And then finally, I'm just going to touch on these are very high broad issues that we're talking about at the state level, or I'm sorry, federal level, that could impact even beyond what we're talking about with BEAD, but the future of broadband service. Once this money's out there and once we build out, how do we sustain these networks? What do we do? That's the future of universal service. Right now, each and every one of you, if you have a landline or a cell phone, you'll see a note on your bill. I don't even know how many people look at their bills anymore, but you'll see one that says Universal Service Fund. And that actually goes, there are 4 programs that Universal Service actually funds. But one of those is the highest cost program that helps deploy at reasonable rates. And so your constituents in these rural areas can expect telephony service and broadband service at a reasonable rate compared to their urban counterparts. That's funded through the Universal Service Program. And so as more people have, and that's paid for by a fee that's assessed on bills from telecommunication providers, from their customers, and so for internet, interstate and international end-user revenues. But as you know, landlines are going away. As more and more people drop their access lines, that contribution factor, the stress on the budget of the Universal Service Fund keeps going up. And so what can we do at the federal level to bring in more people that may not be contributing to the Universal Service Fund? That there's a whole debate being had in Congress right now about that very issue, because there are people who lay their platforms on top of our networks that remit absolutely nothing to the Universal Service Fund. So those questions are taking place right now. Taxation of broadband grants, all this grant money that's out there right now. There's policy discussions being had right now. Right now, as of 2017, as an offset to the Tax Cut and Jobs Acts, these broadband grants are actually being taxed. And so you're getting these broadband grants, and then you're turning around and paying, I think, a 21% rate back to the Treasury. So we're supporting efforts at the federal level, again, to pull this back. It doesn't make a lot of sense when we're trying to deploy and get to that last mile in some of these very rural areas that we award somebody to do this, and then we're turning around and taking 21% of that back. So we're supporting efforts at that level. And then, as we've just stated, there's a lot of priorities that will be debated in the Farm Bill. A lot of broadband language goes through the USDA and the Farm Bill. So things that we've talked about, like interagency cooperation, so that we can prevent overbuilding in these areas, streamlining these regulatory programs, streamlining these programs, whether they're speed thresholds that, as Secretary Hicks were alluding to, that have already been enacted by Congress, that basically make mirroring them across the spectrum. All of that can be contained in the Farm Bill, and so we're addressing that with our congressional delegation right now and supporting our priorities there. I know I spit a lot out at you, and I can turn it over to John now, and happy to answer any questions at the end.
Real quick before we go to Mr. Higginbotham, Representative McPherson, I think had a question specifically with your presentation, Tyler.
Okay.
So I represent the 22nd District, which is Allen, Simpson, and a portion of Warren County.
Yes.
And I do have North Central there that have done a wonderful job and went over into Warren County and helped them. And then we had RDOF in Simpson County that was rewarded a portion of that area. It was my understanding that that contract prohibited any other state funding from being awarded in those areas, that other providers could go in there, but they couldn't ask for any other state funding. They were kind of blocked out from those areas. Is this BEAD program going to be relative the same way?
I may have to revert to Megan on the actual guidelines for that. I know that they are. I was going to say.
Meg, if you can make your way, if you don't care, just so we can have you on record. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, during the initial proposal, we have to do our state challenge process, and that includes what the NTIA is calling the deduplication of previously funded areas. So any place that has an RDOF commitment or a Reconnect loan or grant or any other federal funding, we have to remove from consideration and eligibility.
And so just to follow up with that just a second was, that 10-year build-out period just really gives a lot of residents some heartburn, I guess, saying now we're blocked out from any other grant. And I understand that once you have an area that has grant money, that you don't want to really keep duplicating that, but we necessarily want to go back and make sure if you've got a child that's in first or second grade and you're 10 years getting this, and I know there's percentages that they have to build out to pretty quick, and in Simpson County, luckily, they took this on real early, and I think they're going to be fully built out probably within the next year or so. So once they get in an area, they're probably going to stay there until they finish. But it was just a little bit concerning about once you get there, you've blocked any other monies from coming in out of that.
But I will say, Representative McPherson, and I didn't want to speak because I know they are issuing continual NTIA guidelines on this. But I will say that is pretty consistent with other programs. They are trying to stop. Again, they're wanting to maximize dollars into to new areas as much as possible and extend broadband deployment as much. That is pretty consistent though with other federal programs. So.
And I applaud the fact that once you're doing that, you have but we just want to make sure it gets done. Appreciate it.
We'd go real quick to also Representative Kilcarney, I think, on the same maybe topic here.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your thorough explanation. I wanted to refer back to something you mentioned when you were talking about the smart rural communities, about 50% subscription rate. What happens if that isn't met in a particular area, and are you concerned about any specific areas, or does that not matter?
No, I mean, I will say this is something that our members are doing within our national association, so it's a specific marketing program. Most of the folks that are either looking at this or examining, what those take rates are, most of the people that are in our areas, they're pretty confident if they're going through the process of that program that they're going to be able to meet that threshold. So, it's like everything else. We aggressively market, and I will say, and I'm proud to do this, we have some of the fastest speeds in the, throughout any community in some of these very rural communities that our members represent. So, I mean, when I say we have gigabit symmetrical speeds, we really do. So, a lot of people want to be able to take advantage of that, and so that's one of the reasons why these programs have been successful. We're trying to recruit those remote workers and new employers to areas because they're fascinated that they can go down to Jackson County and get gigabit symmetrical speeds and live in an area where the cost of living is relatively inexpensive compared to other parts of the country. And we're anecdotally, I'm hearing that from my general managers and CEOs all the time. Like, we're getting contacted by folks. I had a member tell me they got contacted by somebody out of New Jersey and just said, I really like Kentucky. I went down there. They visited Keeneland and Horses and loved the area, but they wanted to live in eastern Kentucky County, just, again, cost of living. And they found out they had broadband access in these rural areas from one of our members, and they're looking to locate here from New Jersey. So I hear anecdotal stories like that all the time.
Okay, so not a concern where it's if it doesn't meet a financial model of 50%, you're not going to provide service. Or
No. Our members, if they're again, and these are a lot of our folks that take advantage of this. Some are small commercial companies that are members of the National Association, but again, for our member co-ops, if they're a member there and they want the service, they're going to find a way to build out to them most of the time. Now, I will say it's like everything else. If they haven't had fiber service there, it takes time to cut over into a fiber network. Maybe they had VDSL or DSL service previously, but within our ILEC area, these members, we're trying to get to them like anything else. They're on a construction schedule to get cut over to fiber.
And then your workforce, I want to understand specifically what the positions are. So GIS, software.
It could be. I'll honestly say right now, the one of the biggest issues that we have is just getting the experience and number of contractors for construction type services. Again, these build outs, because again, we're building out in these areas, and we're trying to be an aggressive timeline. Like, we want to meet the timelines to get this service out there as quickly as we can to our members. In order to do that, I'd say pre-pandemic, you would have multiple contractors bid on a job, even a $3-4 million job in one of our areas. That may be peanuts to some, but it's it could be a big deal for a rural broadband provider to build out. You're building out to 1,500 locations for a $4 million build. But now we may only get one contractor, and then that bids on that job. And then it's not only that, but if there's subsequent phases of that same project, keeping the contractor there when you have them, because they're being stretched out and being stretched thin as well, because again, so much of this money is being injected into the system, and this is before BEAD even takes place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Representative Stalker.
Thank you. My question, I'm looking kind of further down the road in this project, and what I'm curious about is a couple of things. What does the communication process look like to residents? So all of a sudden this becomes available in these communities that have had nothing. A lot of these communities potentially are rural, they're lower income. I'm curious about what that looks like as far as making sure that people know once it is available, what steps in order to apply to become eligible to get that discounted credit. So a two-part question, I guess, and that's if you have the ability to speak on this, because I understand this is a little bit further down the road, but I worry about for folks who are in low-income areas, you're also typically dealing with individuals who are unbanked. They might not have credit card access, things of that nature. So I think about, I've got a credit card connected to my internet and it just gets billed every, does that make sense what I'm asking as far as what that communication process looks like to folks, and to make sure that they can actually take advantage of this even if they may not have the traditional means of being able to connect a credit card because they're unbanked? Have you all thought about that in your process for these communities and how people can actually pay for whatever their portion might be monthly?
Okay. So for the Affordable Connectivity Program, that's the subsidy program. That is something that the internet providers can help them apply for to show up as a credit on their bill. There's also a lot of the providers offer their own affordability program, a discount program in order to address some of those. But as far as the billing, I think that works like the same as any other utility billing, whether it's they pay with check or drop off cash or whatever in the office.
And I will say for the Affordable Connectivity Program, our marketing departments for most of our members are they're doing bill inserts, they're doing advertisements. I was speaking to a group, the SOAR, Shaping Our Appalachian Region board meeting, executive committee meeting just a week ago. They were down there talking amongst the judge executives that are a part of that group and those individuals in Eastern Kentucky about their ability to advertise to their constituents in their areas. So they're making that a part of a plan that they have. I think they are actually we're pursuing an FCC outreach grant. So there are things that communities are doing to stay engaged. I mean, obviously, SOAR, for an example, that's a 54 county region, so they're going to be trying to secure an outreach grant in order to help them advertise for ACP, which would help provide this subsidy for those and make people aware of that. So it's probably a two-part answer. One, we're doing this internally. Also, as part of the state's digital equity plan, I think there's going to be conversations about how to advertise and make sure people know that these services are available.
Tyler, I'm going to give you a break. John, I'm going to let you proceed. I know we're losing a few members of other commitments, so at your discretion, please proceed.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is John Higginbotham, Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer with ACA Connects. Thanks again for the opportunity to meet with you all today to talk about trends in broadband development. More on the national scale is what I'm here to talk about. Previous to my tenure at ACA Connects, I worked right here in Frankfurt for the Frankfurt Plant Board for 25 long years and retired in 2017, and my wife and I reside in Mount Sterling. ACA Connects members provide affordable basic and advanced services to more than 23 million households in the United States. ACA Connects members operate in every state, offering next-generation internet access, video, and digital phone service. ACA Connects asks lawmakers and regulators to ensure fair treatment to the small and medium-sized independent operators that we represent that supply these services in Main Street America. And through active participation in the policymaking process, ACA Connects members and leaders advocate for the interest of their customers, their companies, and their communities to ensure that continued viability of their way of life in hometown America. In Kentucky, there are 38 ACA Connects members, and many that we share with Tyler and his state organization, serving 714,000 households and providing service to parts of 103 counties. These members include telephone companies that are with Tyler, family-owned companies, electric cooperative municipalities, and private equity members. I want to touch on some national trends in broadband developed over the next couple of minutes. The first is competition. Last year, ACA Connects released a study analyzing the state of competition in the fixed broadband marketplace. We found that competition is thriving and will become only more intense in the near future. Specifically, the vast majority of U.S. households either already have or will soon have access to at least two providers of fast and reliable fixed broadband service. 5G fixed wireless and other technologies are providing additional competitive options. In any consideration of whether additional or more intrusive broadband regulation is necessary to protect consumers,
I would wager that in terms of fiber, just in terms of switching out the electronics, the life cycle of the fiber itself will outlast a dish that'll be put on a home.
Okay, brief follow-up if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
I mean, but maybe in certain areas, say if we only had to reach two homes that may be out there that might cost, say, tens of thousands of dollars to get out there. Yeah. Would it might not be maybe a more economical thing if we provided a similar subsidy to get something like an individual link up for these houses rather than spending all that money to get out there?
I mean, that's built into BEAD. It's fiber first, but in those instances where it's 7 more miles down that road to that next home, there are alternative technologies that can be deployed. But, you know, as we understand the study, as we've studied it over the course of the last year, specific to Kentucky, we think there's going to be enough money that's going to flow to this state. You're going to be able to touch fiber optics to every household that is unserved and underserved. That 203,000 today.
Well, there may be enough money coming, but that might not be the most efficient allocation of that money. I mean, clearly, I think that Representative McPherson talked about other areas that perhaps need an upgrade to get their maximum potential that might serve more customers. Will be better off repurposing that money to get the maximum impact over all areas of the state using a variety of technologies rather than, you know, spending all that extra money to put fiber out to the last house on the holler, so to speak. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those are going to be individual decisions. I honestly, I don't know the BEAD program as well as Megan does, to be quite honest with you. Are there limitations within BEAD, what you can do with the money once it's awarded? I don't know the answer to the question, sir.
So one of the requirements in the initial proposal, we have to set what's called the high cost location threshold, and that is a dollar figure where we are able to consider proposals that are not fiber proposals. And so there's a little push and pull on that because we want to set it high enough that that we are not over-committing to fiber, but low enough so that we don't under-commit to fiber. So, like somewhere in the middle, and we have some ways to measure that. We have some, past experience on what the, average cost per location is on our grants we've issued, and then some cost modeling data that's forthcoming from the cost quest that has produced the FCC maps. So those are things we're evaluating.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all. Seeing no further questions, approaching the 90-minute portion, I was going to see what was going to finish first. Representative McPherson, your granddaughter's lollipop